Today's teaching point is fiction writers often hide meaning in stories in symbolic elements. Now, this session is designed for students who've already completed a scene or looking for ways to add symbolism to their piece. Now, you may want to watch this session before you've even started writing, and then naturally weave the symbolism into the piece after you've begun your writing. We're going to learn how to recognize symbolic elements, so the cliched and the more advanced. We're also going to learn a little 4-step strategy of how to actually write and integrate symbolism into your writing. Let's get started. There are the common symbolic elements where it's a little bit cliched, but it's definitely a starting point. So when you come across keys and locks, maybe when you come across flowers breaking through ice, or when you come across God, the weather, the clouds, the rain, all of these are symbolic elements. Anything on a leaf, anything cage. Now, you think about, well, what do these symbols mean in day-to-day life? And then you start to apply those meanings to your story. So, for example, you've got a sunrise. It could be a new beginning. You've got ice melting. It could be change. We've got candles, time passing. We've got letters, which are words of wisdom. And there's so many different symbols you could connect to a phone. All of those are techniques. Now, whatever the song is about, or whatever is the theme of that book, is often a message or a theme in the story. Doors and windows, and you go back to your notice and know what keeps coming up again and again, and then you start to look at the pattern and then start to thinking, well, what are emotions, what feelings are attached to this symbol? Now, what does that look like in a piece of writing? So ultimately, you need to know what it is that you're trying to say. What's your story really about? So what is the so what factor? Decide that first. Then you ask yourself, what objects in your piece, maybe it's a setting or maybe it's an action that could reflect that so what factor, the running, a stairs, a window, or possibly even light. And then you take a moment to describe those objects or those actions in detail, and that way they will increase the importance to the character. And then finally, if you're doing multiple scenes, that you revisit those objects, or you revisit that symbol at a different stage in your story, so that the ideas that are attached to the symbol and start being attached, and the reader starts to see the pattern. Now, you can easily still do this in one scene, especially if you visit a symbol at the beginning of the scene and then revisit it at the end. So I've already got an idea of what my piece is going to be about before I begin. Now, I reread my passage looking for objects, settings, or actions could reflect this meaning. So this is a scene that I wrote. As I walked down the long hallway, I listened to other kids' voices. I knew some of my friends must have been somewhere, but I really wanted to find the popular kids like Liz and Maeve. And oh, that's so funny, I heard from the doorway on the left. I was pretty sure it's May's voice. I walked a few more steps, not sure if I should go into the other room or not. Never laughed so hard in my life, said Liz, her voice sounding so happy. I turned to the doorway and saw them in a room. That must have been Liz's bedroom. So then I started to think, well, what is it that I could really bring attention to inside this piece? There's a long hallway. There's a doorway there. So I could take the hallway and I could take the doors and make these like choices. I could make the hallway more confusing, darker, and I could make the doors themselves literally choices about directions this character's going to take. What does that look like in a little bit more detail? I'm going to describe these objects in detail. I headed into the hallway. It's a much longer hallway than at home and sort of empty. My hallway at home was covered with family pictures and filled with light, hint, hint. This one was plain, nothing hanging on the walls, and since someone had turned out the lights, it was dark. As I walked down the hallway, I listened for the other kids' voices. I knew some of my friends must have been somewhere, but I really wanted to find the popular kids like Liz and Maeve. I know, that's so funny, I heard from the doorway on the left. I was pretty sure it was Sarah's voice, my neighbour. I walked a few more steps, not sure if I should go into the room or not. Light was pouring out of the doorway. Further down the hallway, I heard loud whispers. Did you catch that in that last little line? Light was pouring out of that doorway. The type of hushed voices that everybody's supposed to hear. I've never laughed so hard in my life, said Liz, her voice sounding so mean. turned to the doorway and saw them in a room that must have been Liz's bedroom. The faces lit only by a lamp in the corner. Notice how I'm showing the light there. You see that devious, mysterious aspect of that? For some reason, I turned around and headed towards Sarah's voice. So, I've created this idea. Now, later on in my piece, maybe I'll have another corridor or dark passageway, or maybe I will have some doors that I'm going to pay attention to you here, and then I'm going to see if you can come up with some ideas where you could weave symbolism into this piece. Sat in the middle of the bus. The cool kids sat in the back. The nerdy kids sat in the front where the bus driver kept an eye on them. I sat in the middle with all of the sort of regular kids, the ones that just wanted to be left alone, wishing, like I always did, that my mum would let me walk home alone. But she always said, 1 more year, when you're in high school. Anyway, I was sitting on the bus, bored and trying not to be noticed when I took up my phone. I went to swipe to turn it on, and it flashed a red battery sign. It was dead. Now what? I have a long bus ride home with nothing to do. I could do my homework, but why would I do that? Okay, take a moment to pause the video here and write down like 2 or 3 ideas of where you could weave symbolism in. Pause the video now. Okay, maybe the phone. Maybe we could pay attention to a person's phone, and maybe there's a reflection in the phone. Maybe we could pay attention to the seats, and the author or the narrator starts talking a little bit about the seats. Maybe there's something outside that the bus is going past. Maybe it's a tree, or maybe there's a sign in a shop window. So you always try to think of objects that you could write about in a little bit more detail and bring attention to those objects, and that's how you weave symbolism into a piece. Now, for those advanced writers that want to really move away from this idea of cliched symbols like clouds and rain and flowers and rivers and roads, you could try the objective correlative. Now, the objective correlative is a very, very simple technique. It sounds really complicated, but all you are doing is taking an object that takes on the emotions and the feelings of a character. So, for example, if there's an argument in your piece, you take a moment to describe what a cat is doing or describe something else in that piece. Now, whenever that cat comes back up in the story, that cat is symbolizing the feelings or the emotions that the character felt when that argument was taking place. So during a really tense moment, find an object that you can focus on or an action that you can focus on and write long on that, and then bring back that object again later on. It could be a necklace, it could be a picture frame, and then come back to that when you want that character to experience those same emotions. Okay guys, so much real quality stuff in there. Go back, read one of your pieces, look for a place to pause and add an object that could hint at a bigger idea, write about that object in detail, and revisit it later. It's time to write. Make sure you bring your writing to one of your teachers so that they can see how you've woven symbolism into your piece. See you soon.